Is this working? I love feeling like an old person not streaming correctly. I feel like such an old person. Okay, if this is working, hello and welcome to the live stream of me talking about the monarchy versus the republic and answering questions about what's going to happen next to Australia now that the Queen has died. And in classic fashion, because I don't do this very often, I don't know if this is working. So what I'm going to just do right now is oh, it is live. Okay, wonderful. People are saying hello. One, I have two monitors, and one looks like it's not doing anything, and the other one looks like it is doing something. So I am just going to be like checking my own like on my phone to be like, no, Australia is not a republic now. This just a discussion about like a lot of people don't understand what a republic is, and because people are going to be talking about a republic a lot now that Queen Elizabeth II has died, now is a good chance to ask, what does a republic mean? Good. I do see myself walking now. Okay. So, hello to those just joining us. This is the beginning. Hi, Bianca. What's even happened? The Queen has died. Queen Elizabeth II has died, aged 96, after 70 years as the monarch. That is a pretty big deal. She's the longest serving monarch of the Commonwealth, or British Empire, and the second longest serving monarch in human history, with known exact dates. The other one being Louis the XIV. He served for 72 years and 100 and something days. She served for 70 years and 200 and something days, so she was about a year and a half off beating the world record. To be fair, Louis XIV was a literal child when they put him on the throne. He didn't actually do any king business. So really, if we want to think about like longest serving monarch who actually did their duty as an adult, Queen Elizabeth II does indeed get that record. Someone's asking, oh my goodness, I'm just going to move this. Okay. Move the chat. Don't you just love that? Okay. Rumors about a public holiday. I don't know. The thing is, right, there is the Queen's celebration. Sorry, the Queen's birthday celebration. That is a public holiday. It will now be renamed the King's birthday. The Queen's birthday was actually back in April, as in her real birthday. Australia does not celebrate it on her actual birthday, as I believe do the UK as well. So the actual date of the public holiday of the Queen's birthday varies, including based off which state you're in. Western Australia, fun fact, the governor actually picks when the Queen's birthday will be to be more near the Perth Royal Show. So it is meant to be, I think, this year, September 26th. So unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth II didn't live to see her own Queen's birthday celebration in WA, which I'm sure she super cared about. But I will hopefully be there enjoying the guinea pig races and costume contest. Because, how else do you pay tribute to a long-serving monarch other than looking at guinea pigs? So yes, that'll probably just be King's birthday, and we'll still get a public holiday. I don't know if we'll get a new public holiday. On top of that, they are getting a bank holiday in England, I think, as a result. Let me just adjust some light. Let's see, does that look better? Yes. Ben says, I feel like the Queen... Wait, are you that Ben that annoys me? No, I don't think you're the Ben that annoys me. There's lots of Bens. Never mind. Hey, yes. Fiona says, it's the Pokemon Twitch streamer. Yeah, I really love Twitch streaming about Pokemon, which I believe I have not done in literally over a year. And I think about it every week or two to be like, I should go back on Twitch. I'm so busy, though. Yes. I miss Twitch. Literally so busy. How long will this delay the resignation of David Hurley? Says the West Report. Well, I don't know. That seems like I don't know how that would impact this at all. Potentially would just take the attention away from him. But there is actually not a specific time limit to how long a governor or governor general can serve. So David Hurley, the current governor general, was it 2018 that he was appointed? Conventionally, it's about 4 or 5 years. It's actually at His Majesty's pleasure. I need to get ready, used to using different pronouns. For the past 70 years, we've been saying at Her Majesty's pleasure. So he could serve for 9 years, potentially. But conventionally, which is not a rule, he should resign in about 2 years, if not less. So, yeah. People talking about the Republic. Is it quiet for people? I can turn it up. Yes. Is that better? Better volume? Will the date of that be changing? The Queen's birthday? I don't know. I mean, the Queen's birthday, which will now be the King's birthday, was never actually on her birthday. So it's pretty sure it was like established during one of the Georges or something. So it can change, but also it doesn't need to change because it's not actually related to the monarch's birth date. So, yeah. Dingo asked, do I think now is the time to reconsider the Republic debate? Well, I think that it is always time, all the time, for a Republic debate, because, I mean, let's be respectful. People are in mourning and we're not going to appear like vultures, but, you know, this is the kind of thing that is, you know, requires a nationwide referendum. It's a big decision, and there are competing models. So if, you know, a big contentious drawback, a setback to the 1999 Republic movement referendum was just simple lack of public education and engagement. So if you don't engage in a discussion and debate about the Australian Republic movement until like weeks before you go to vote on that ballot, well, a lot of people will just simply not understand what's going on and not be informed voters. So, like, it's technically always time for that because it is a long-term thing. If you are a pro-Republican, to discuss the idea of what the Republic movement means, or if you are pro-monarchy, it is also then a long-term thing to talk to people about that to preserve the current system of government. So yes, if you would like to ask questions about Republic, because I have seen a lot of misinformation and lack of understanding of what a Republic means, so feel free at any point to ask questions about what that actually involves. So will we be a Republic? Again, it is basically a question for the public to decide. The only way to become a Republic is to change the Constitution. The only way to change the Constitution is by a national referendum, where this means that we need to have more than half of the voting population of Australia to vote yes for a specific change proposed by Parliament. So we need to have a bill passed in Parliament first, and then we also need 4 out of 6 states to have a majority of their population agree as well. It's called a double majority. So you can't just have, say, like New South Wales and Victoria being very large populous states. Like if they had like 80-90% yes, whereas, you know, Tasmania with a very small population was like 95% no, it still gets really weighted towards yes population-wise. So that's why there's that 4 out of 6 states balancing element of it. So it's very much like there is a reason why only 8 out of the past 44 referendums in Australia's 121-year history as a federation have passed. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone agrees that Prince Charles is not as popular as Queen Elizabeth II. He will still be the king of the UK, I'm pretty sure, until his death or abdication. It's more of a question of whether or not his personal popularity helps Australia stay in the stay with him as the head of state. We can still be in the Commonwealth even if we become a republic, so don't worry about that. Dingo asked, won't republic referendums suffer from vote splitting due to preferences of particular republic models? Yes, that is what happened in 1999. There are different versions of a republic. The basis of a republic is that you have someone who is not the monarch acting as head of state. So that is, the executive, or at least part of the executive branch of government. So the US republic model, they directly elect the president, who is the head of state, and the president in the US is also head of government. So, Joe Biden sits outside of Congress, but still has a legislative agenda that he can put forward to Congress. Currently, in our system, the head of government is the Prime Minister, federally, and the Governor General acts on behalf of the monarch as sort of the de facto head of state. Does not have a legislative agenda. And there was arguments in 1999 whether or not the people should directly elect the president, or whether or not the Parliament should appoint by 2/3 majority someone to act like the Governor General does now, not be a political party machine, because you need a 2/3 majority to appoint. The Prime Ministers can still fire that person, but the Prime Minister then can't just replace them with a political lackey, because they still need bipartisan support. And so there's competing ideas between, should Parliament appoint this person or should we directly elect this person, and then also what impacts that have. So yes, that is kind of why a debate about the Republic is a thing that'll be happening for at least a couple of years to come, because we have to sort out what idea people actually want to vote for. Because if they, like in 1999, think, if I vote down this idea, well, in a few years I might have an opportunity to vote for something that I think is better, which is a lie. That has destroyed the 1999 referendum. If you vote down a referendum, it is almost dead forever. We almost never revisit concepts that were voted down in previous referendums. The only thing that causes the Republic referendum to keep coming up is both public persistence and the life cycle of a monarch. So if the next referendum fails on a republic, we have to wait probably until King Charles III dies. So, yes. And now I'm going into lots of... That's my lengthy answer, and now I'm like, gotta catch up on the questions. Could becoming a republic affect us geopolitically? Don't think so. A lot of intergovernmental foreign relationships and trade and stuff and all that, that's based off economic ties and the work of ambassadors and historical links to other countries. So countries, there is the Commonwealth, right? The Commonwealth of Nations. That includes many nations that were once constitutional monarchies with the British monarch as their head of state that have since become a republic. So we can still have all the benefits of being in the Commonwealth. We can just remove King Charles III as our monarch if that is what the public want and can agree on a republic model. Yes, Ellie, we can still have a prime minister. So the prime minister is the head of government, right? So France, for example, has a prime minister and a president that share legislative power. I think share a little bit of executive power as well. It's just the US model, for example, which we're all super familiar with, theirs is slightly different. So instead of having a prime minister who is a separate head of government, they've just crammed that together in with their head of state, the president, who acts with the authority that the monarch could exercise in Australia. Only more so with executive orders, etc. So yes, becoming republic almost certainly will not involve removing the prime minister. It'll just be the prime minister reports and is appointed by someone who is Australian, appointed or elected by Australians, instead of appointed by a monarch of the UK, who is also the monarch of Australia. What is my preferred model of republic? That's a good question that I'm not going to answer because I insist on trying to be politically neutral. I can go into the arguments for and against direct appointment versus direct election. But let's catch up on other questions. Fiona Jane says, can't wait for millions of public money to be spent on the funeral and coronation. Yes, it is unfortunate. But also, I mean, the coronation won't be for a while. But yes, I mean, there is always competing things with government funds. And if anyone has actually not seen the House of Lords, which is the place where opening of Parliament ceremonies happen after an election in the British Parliament, you should look it up. It is very golden, as you can tell by the name House of Lords. There's a lot of fancy pomp to and showing of wealth there that Australian parliaments don't have. Australia, to also catch up on what Fiona is saying, commenting on Australia spending heaps of money on our coins to rebrand them, and we might not potentially even keep the head of state. Well, there is always an ongoing cost to maintaining, and also redesigning and coming up with new ideas for, the money that we have. So that is a passive cost that we have anyway, which then counter argument when people say, oh, we shouldn't become a republic. Think of all the cost it'll have for changing all the money. Well, we're about to change all the money anyway. This is just a natural part of the progression of, having a mint. So that you can, I feel if you want to have an issue with that, feel free. But yeah, if anti-Republicans tell you we can't do it because it'll cost money, that is a silly argument. How valid is the argument of when you take the crown away, you take the Westminster Convention along with it, thus reducing stability of Parliament? Good question, Dingo. I would say it's not particularly valid. Westminster tradition, if anything, I think we could strengthen the stability of Parliament, because the Westminster tradition, to be fair, I'm a fan of it, but also I grew up in its system, but a lot of it is convention, ideas that have formulated over hundreds of years, and conventions are not rules. You can break convention and there will be no punishment to you. The Governor-General recently broke a convention by appointing Scott Morrison to 5 secret ministries and then not telling anyone. Conventionally, he's not meant to do that. I mean, conventionally, he acts on the advice of the Prime Minister, and so was fulfilling that part of convention. Just the secrecy element of it, that's not part of it. But also, nowhere in the rule book does it say that your Prime Minister can't have 5 secret ministries, and also a dog can't play basketball. So one of the debates in the 1999 referendum was very much about how do we codify the reserve powers of the Governor-General into actual legal statutes for the President. We can keep a lot of the traditions and customs and conventions. I think it would be useful, especially because the idea of changing a system of government alienates and scares a few people, and if you want it to succeed, you should have some familiarity with the current system. But if you just actually put it into specific laws, which I guess you can do without becoming a republic, it could basically just evolve and strengthen the Westminster tradition. So I don't think the idea that being a republic will destabilize us at all. It's just another form of government. There can be pros and cons to any form of government, it's more likely to become unstable if we elect the wrong kind of people to be in it. But that is a constant concern regardless of the model we have. Yeah. What would be the benefits of changing from PM to president? Well, I don't think we should get rid of the prime minister. I think that's a good, useful thing. Then again, again, well, yeah, I say it's useful. If, oh, okay, I'm about to be like, oh, but what if other people argue against the current Australian Republic model is not about ditching the prime minister, so I feel like it's safe to say that that's probably we're going to keep them. It's not really about replacing the prime minister. It's about replacing the king with a president who is Australian, basically, and appointed or elected by Australians. Admittedly, the monarchy doesn't have a very active role in our the day-to-day of our Australian political system. They play a more passive role, but that is the convention that has been established over hundreds of years, and was they were way more active even than the 1920s. It's just that they are the axis in which other things rotate around, because the Prime Minister goes to now King Charles III and goes, I'd like this person to be the Governor General, and by convention the King goes, yeah, sure, I approve that. King doesn't have to. King doesn't even have to agree with our laws. The King is allowed to disallow a law up to 1 year of it having been given royal assent by the Governor General, which is section 59 of the Constitution. So really, that is the central focus. It's more of who do you want to be the person, who do you want to be the central cog? What kind of system do you want the central cog of government to rotate around? Do you want this person to be super active, inactive, ceremonial, appointed, elected, someone who serves for life because their father's father won a title, these sorts of things. Do you think we should have elections every 3 years in a republic? Sure, why not? Unless we change the constitution to have that alteration as well, I'm pretty sure the election dates are going to stay the same as well, in that they are 3 years or earlier, with the exception of the Senate, which cannot be any further than 1 year apart from when the next term will roll over. Yes. I wonder if the Assistant Minister for the Republic will make a statement. I wonder too. From memory, Labour has said that although it is interested in pursuing a republic, they don't perceive doing it until after the 2025 election. That might change, but also it's kind of well, the Queen is alive and we assume that she might not be by that point, but also there is a bit of distance where if they I think they won't resume until the 20th, or is that the West Australian State Parliament? They're having a week off, and if the moment they start sitting again, they're time for a republic, people will call them callous vultures, and they're she's barely even dead. So it's really just a matter of politely waiting for amount of time for people to mourn and readjust, and then take a time when it's no longer fresh to re-examine the idea of oh, do we want a republic or not? And then Labour will consider that as a possibility. So yeah, a republic referendum is coming. We just don't know when, but I don't predict it will be for at least a couple of years. Yeah. Don't know if we're going to have a holiday. I'm so sorry. I hope so. Be nice. Then again, school holidays are coming up and I have school holidays off anyway. So the Australian Republic movement made a kind of statement this morning about the Queen. Fair enough. I haven't actually read it. Before I got in here, I was I want to double check what their model that they're proposing is. Wow. In a twist of events, unlike my last live stream, I actually catched up on all the questions. I forgot what I was going to say. So, for those curious about what the current Australian Republic movement model that they're proposing is, the idea of like a compromise with direct electionists, where there is still a direct election from the public, but it's not like a free-for-all. Like, you only really hear about like a handful of candidates in the US presidential race. There's some paperwork that you fill out, and like 1,000 people run every year. I mean, not every year, every election. Like 1,000 people or something ridiculous like that. And I don't know what the qualifiers are that like actually get you anywhere before you're in that like presidential debate between 6 people on CNN before the primaries. I don't know. The US system is difficult to understand. The Australian Republic movement suggests that every parliament in Australia nominates one person, except for the federal, which nominates 3 options, and then that collective group of people then gets to be voted on directly nationally by the public. I'm not sure what the actual like approval process or like qualifications are for this system, but that is like the idea, because like previously it's like, oh, the parliament wants to appoint someone. What if we don't trust the people in parliament? Well, if we take a broad collection of like every parliament in Australia, well, you're going to have inherently some sort of bipartisan spread, or in some sense, because, you know, New South Wales currently has a Liberal Premier, and this has a Labor Premier, and ACT has like a mix of Labor and Greens. And, you know, you have different political alignments across the country, and so it's not just the central federal parliament making a decision, and then also then it's like, oh, well, you know, if the people were like, why don't we get to elect our head of state? It's like, well, you do. You don't get to pick it from like thousands of people. Not anyone can run, but you still get a choice. I guess this idea is to prevent, you know, just some absolutely terrible person from being able to just climb the ranks through money and good advertising, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. We have to read up more. I'm looking forward to what they bring forward to the discussion, so people can understand it better and decide whether or not it's a good idea. The Australian Republic movement as an organisation is not set in stone, and that does not necessarily mean that that is what the Parliament, the federal Parliament, will put forward as a proposal. So that is an idea. If you have a different idea, contact the Labor member who represents the Republic Ministry, or whatever it is. Can't remember the exact title. I'm just reading a question. Josh Lama makes a point about having a Republic referendum at the same time as a referendum for an Indigenous voice. That would save money. Like it's like having a general election. Like it literally is like having a general election. Like millions are spent on advertising, and then also like the AEC has to like mobilize staff and create the infrastructure for people to vote, because voting in a referendum is mandatory. But it might also like muddy the waters, so to speak. Like, yeah, it's kind of like creating 2 competing things for people to pay attention to, neither of which are necessarily widely understood. And so it might actually be damaging to both movements to have both of them put forward at the same time. Much like the 1999 referendum, muddied with John Howard being like, we should have a preamble. I wish it had the word mateship in it before he got talked down out of that idea. Someone asked, has the Queen ever interfered with our politics? Depends on who you ask. There's a lot of secrecy as to, the communications of the Queen. She, by convention, is meant to appoint bring this closer, Governor General or governors, based off the advice of the Prime Minister or premiers, and that is a passive role, supposedly. She does have the constitutional power to, once again, disallow a law within 1 year of the Governor General's assent, and she can come into Australia and give royal assent herself. Bills can be reserved for her pleasure, or at least could have been. She's dead now. Need to remember that to talk about her in past tense. But if you're Professor Jenny Hocking, a historian who focuses on Gough Whitlam, yes, because she believes firmly that her private secretary, Sir Charteris, almost certainly told her about his plans to dismiss Gough Whitlam ahead of time and discussed it with Buckingham Palace. Whereas if you are, what's his name? Where is it? I can't remember. I don't know. He's a writer for the Australian. He's also Troy Bramston, I think, wrote a competing book about the palace letters, and he says that it demonstrates and proves that the Queen did not know, and therefore did not advise Charteris to inform John Kerr that he was well within his rights to use the reserve powers to dismiss Gough Whitlam. So, depends who you ask as to whether or not the Queen has interfered in our politics. She was an integral part of it. What happens to the mace that represents the crown if it become a republic? We get rid of it, presumably. We replace it with something else, I guess. Does the US? I don't know. I don't know what other parliaments outside of the Westminster system use. Do they even have a special stick? We probably just get rid of the golden mace and especially the black rod. The golden mace is meant to represent the Speaker's authority, whereas the black rod is meant to represent the monarch's authority. Lower houses with golden maces are meant to be independent from the monarch. So there's a fun little tradition where when the usher of the black rod comes to bang on the door of the lower house to summon members into the upper house for a opening of Parliament ceremony, for instance, they slam the door in their face and then discuss whether or not they're going to then go and hear the address by the governor or governor general. They naturally do, but it's all part of the pantomime of like, we're independent, slam. This also is in the UK, so maybe we could keep the mace and just file off the end. I don't know. Put it in a museum. It belongs in a museum. Do I think that if we became a republic that the president would be more ceremonial figure like in Germany and India? Probably, yes. I think that is the thing that is most likely going to pass from the public. A lot of people, when I bring up the idea of republic, or if I've seen discussions about it online, their aversion to it quite often is, I don't want to be like the US. And they don't realize that it's like, you don't have to. That's just a model of a republic. So the idea that if we just made the Governor General into a more ceremonial, a ceremonial president, much like they are a ceremonial head of state de facto now. All good, you know? People will probably like that. But then you get the counter argument of like, well, that's not much of a change, so if it's not broke, why fix it? And that is part of the ongoing debate that we'll have about this topic. No, Daniel, we won't lose the Queen's birthday holiday. It'll just be the King's birthday holiday. King Charles III. The first time we've had a Charles as king since the late 1600s. About 350-ish years, give or take, since we've had a Charles. Yeah. Fun fact... We're having a lot of questions about the Republic. I want to talk about historical monarchies for fun, so I'm going to tell you the story. King Charles I died because he was executed by the Parliament. Like I said, lower houses are meant to be independent from the monarch, even though they still require, the approval of the monarch to put any of their ideas into actual, laws. King Charles I, he decides that 5 MPs in the House of Commons were treasonous. I don't know if they were or not, and goes to arrest them in the House of Commons. He is not meant to go in there. He doesn't have permission. He barges in anyway. He's announced his plan ahead of time, like an idiot, so the MPs just leave the building, and he demands the Speaker reveals their location. The Speaker says, no. Some other words, I assume, but basically it's like, no, you can't tell me to do that. There's some other political tensions happening at the time. There's a civil war. I don't know all the details, but fast forward a little bit, the army in favour of the Parliament helps. They get the king, King Charles I, they trial him and execute him. They behead him. And then England actually becomes a republic for a few years. They have the Lord Protector Cromwell, who is like a de facto head of state, somewhat like a republic, because he's not a monarch, he's not a king. So they have to like remake the Privy Council with basically just same thing, just like a different name. And they're like, I don't know how to do a different system of government. So little do they understand how to do a different system of government that when Cromwell is going to stand down or die, I can't remember which one, they're like, we'll change the law so you can pick your successor. He picks his son. And then it's like, oh, okay, if we're just going to keep doing this, he was like a weak leader or something. I can't remember if he dies or not before he gets replaced with the son of King Charles I, who is off being the King of Ireland, I think, at this point. And King Charles II becomes the monarch, and they reinstate the monarchy in the UK. And that's how it's been for hundreds of years. So yeah, monarchs. Queen Elizabeth II never went into a lower house. Representatives like the Governor General and Governor always are in the upper house, because 400 years ago they got beheaded, basically, which I think is a fun little historical story. Of course, if for whatever reason King Charles III decides to barge into the House of Commons or House of Representatives, of course he's not going to get beheaded. That would be absurd. What are they actually going to do to him? What are they actually going to do to King Charles III if he decides to defy convention and go into the House of Commons? Get mad? And then have like the Daily Mail or something decide which version, either like pro-monarchy or against monarchy, would be more salacious and sell more papers? I don't know. Again, convention isn't a rule. I just like history. Everyone asking, how likely is it for Australia to become a republic? I think the chances are slim, but possible. It is hard to predict these things. 8 out of 44 referendums in Australia's history since Federation have failed, including the 1999 referendum, which was the last time we had one 23 years ago. That's the last time we had tried to have a referendum. and it happened to be on a republic. It failed. I believe the last successful referendum was in 1977. So it's not guaranteed. I'm sure lots of people are very passionate about it, and if you're very passionate about it, well, like all things, if you're passionate about in politics, talk to people and convince them that your ideas are a good idea, so they support them as well. Otherwise, well, the vote won't pass. No, Charles isn't the creep, as far as I'm aware. You're thinking of Andrew, who is the second son. Also, the other day I learned how lines of succession in the British monarchy work, because for some reason up until now I never understood it. The only reason I learned it was thanks to a French news Twitter that I follow, because for a while I was trying to learn French. Andrew is 7th or 8th, or is he 9th in line? I can double check this real quick. This great fun of tuning into a live stream, watching someone go on their phone. Apparently I can't check this very quickly. I don't know where I saved it. Andrew is 9th. And the only way that Andrew would become king is if Charles dies, then William dies, then all of William's children die, and then also Harry dies, followed by all the children of Harry dying as well. You have to, like, it basically is like oldest child, no longer son, oldest child, all the way down that lineage until you make your way back up. Basically, Andrew is 9th in line. He will never be king. He will long be dead before William is dead, unless there is some freak accident. Yes. Well, I suppose that depends on the model. I don't know. What, like, who appoints them? Because again, the current Australian Republic movement is like all the different parliaments nominate someone, like, from all around the country to then federally be elected to be the president. So I suppose the president then just appoints the governors based off the recommendation of the premiers, if we are to preserve our current sort of Westminster style. But then again, we could propose different ideas on how to replace or choose governors, and potentially, actually, we could have states doing it differently. We could. States have their own constitutions. They can modify them, sometimes by referendum, sometimes by legislation. So potentially, we could have different ways of choosing governors in states. I don't know. I'm really interested, though. That's kind of like the hype. That's a hypothetical that people don't consider as much. No, to answer your question, Flanders, when Charles dies, Andrew will not be king. When Charles dies, William will be king. And so off and so off. Yeah. So, yes. What's my favorite tweet/meme about the Queen dying? I think it was like Canadian Drag Race. It was like, who will take the crown next? And then they deleted it. And they're like, no! Bad timing. Yeah. I did see like some like kebab award or something organization being like, we're so sad about the Queen's passing. And it's like, I'm sure you are. You do normally talk about kebabs though. Like, I don't expect the local fish and chip shop to make an official statement about the death of a monarch, but you do you. So yeah, I think my favorite memes are the ones where or tweets have been people incidentally, accidentally, or unusually doing something that's ill-timed. NJ, I suppose King Charles is going with King Charles III simply because he's so old. He's like, what, 73? And people would probably get confused at this point. Like, it's such a massive change for someone to, for the longest reigning monarch of the Commonwealth to die, that I think if he changed his name now, people would probably get confused, but also like the lack of like, you want to probably assert some kind of stability and like familiarity at this point psychologically, because a lot of people are very invested in this. But yes, you bring up a thing that people haven't thought about, and I didn't know until recently. The monarch, when they become the monarch, can choose a different name. They're not like Queen Elizabeth II. Could have chosen a new name, and she didn't, and stuck with her actual birth name for over 70 years. And so there are actually not many people left alive who remember personally, like, experiencing a monarch change their name. Is anyone? There are some people alive, yes, because I think it was 1936 was when King George VI became king, wasn't it? We actually had 3 kings in 1 year. It was George V died, Edward VIII became king. He abdicated because he loved a divorced woman, Wallis Simpson, before the end of 1936. Was it 38? 30s. And King George VI becomes king until his death in 1952, and then we get a very long reign. So we went from 3 kings in 1 year to a couple of decades later, for a long time. I don't know if there's been any uniquely Australian Republic models proposed, because I don't know all the different Republic models out there. I will tell you one interesting Republic model. I'm going to say the name of this country wrong. I'm going to Google it very quickly to make sure I know what I'm saying. My cousin, who learned, I think, Serbian, always tells me that I say this wrong. Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think that's the country I'm thinking of, or countries. They have 3 presidents that sort of like rotate as to which one is the head one in the chair. I can't explain it very well. You have to Google that. But that is a very interesting way of doing it, having multiple head of states co-sharing power, but then also like changing who was the dominant one. I think that's how it works. Apologies if I've said that wrong. Yes. Does the monarch have constitutional power over the defense force? Yes. The head of state is the head of the armed forces. In practice, no. So the Governor General, as de facto head of state, working on behalf of the monarch and actually doing all the heavy lifting and paperwork, is therefore head of the armed forces. But in Australia, right, unlike in the US, where I think they need congressional approval to go to war, you don't need the Governor General to approve that. The Prime Minister can just declare war or advise the Governor General to declare war. So, yeah. Technically, yes, but also, like, in the system that we have, no. Like, King Charles III, I think if he ever gave a direct command to a general, an Australian general, they'd be like, what? What? But possibly. I don't know what the legal ramifications would be for saying no to the king, but sort of, yeah, they are. Scrolling up because everyone's asking questions. Are there any other Westminster countries? Yes. Don't know how soon. There was a country recently that William visited, and like the Prime Minister, when he left, he was like, "Thanks, we should become a republic now." I don't think they have yet. Like the Bahamas did recently. The monarch used to be head of state of 16 countries. Now it's down to 15. And I think another one is considering it soon. It's the big ones are like, you know, the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and you get a lot of smaller sort of island nations like Papua New Guinea and whatnot, and some stuff in the like Caribbean area, like that are still like have the British monarchy, but like I don't know what their internal politics are like. I'm pretty sure like Canada isn't going to move anytime soon. Maybe not New Zealand, but those smaller island nations, quite possibly. Yeah. Whoop. Bianca, why do schools in Australia teach the Australian government system so poorly? I don't know. It's annoying. And I'm trying to fix that. Then again, some schools do really well. I think it's because like it's a social science, you know? Like it's humanities and social science. It's under HASS, which is a broad thing. So you can like, okay, we're going to talk about like geography and history and geopolitics, and we can and like talk a little bit about like the Australian system of government, and then there's like the federal system and like the state system. So I get kids all the time talking to me about the Senate, and I like that they know about the Senate, but I'm like, I'm trying to teach you about state politics currently, and I have said the word legislative council literally 12 times in the past 30 minutes. I suppose it is like a combination of many factors, and plenty of schools out there doing a fantastic job, and some schools aren't. You also find that probably it's like a limitation. Like it's in the curriculum. These kids are meant to learn it, and they probably will effectively going forward. But it might not have been well taught when the teachers were in school, and so they are not particularly very good at teaching it potentially. Or maybe they are very good. Again, this is like, it depends on which school you went to. I wasn't taught it very well in school. I don't think I was taught it at all, which is very concerning. I didn't know the difference between the Senate and the House of Representatives until 2014. So, and I graduated high school in 2009. Goody. I love leaning in to have to scroll down with questions. Okay, I'm catching up. Barbados. Oh, thank you. Not Bahamas. Sorry. I was like, B word. I know I'm going to get it wrong. Yes. Hello, Anna. Have you talked about what's happened to public holidays? I don't know. I don't know. We will still be... Western Australia, by the way, the governor chooses when the Queen's birthday celebration is, separate to when other states celebrate it. Most states, I think, celebrate it July? Anyway, there are like 3 different dates that the Queen's birthday is celebrated in Australia. Maybe 4, depending on certain factors. I'm not entirely sure. We will have the King's birthday. We will. It is set. It has already been decided for this year. If anyone has written something down, they might have to do some quick brand changes and reprinting of things to be like, oh, it's not a Queen's birthday celebration. Pardon me. It's a King's birthday. The King. Long live the King. Chucky. Charles. 3rd Charles. Yes. Australian. Would I recommend to Australian federal parliamentary model to countries who wish to shift to a new system? I mean, I like it, but again, it's like their bias of what I know literally the most about as a special interest, and I'm so fixated on it. I definitely don't recommend the US system. When I learn about that, I'm like, that seems broken. You didn't play test that one beforehand. The idea of requiring a 2/3 majority to impeach like a president with partisan lines, that'll never happen. The US system is literally designed to give a free pass to the president, despite the founding fathers' idea that they were creating an idea where Congress could, at least have semblance of counterbalance power against a tyrant. Good idea, doesn't work very well. Let's be honest. Every single president that has been impeached in the House of Representatives has been absolved in the Senate. Or is it the other way around? I think it's that way around. Yes. I like the Australian system because I'm in it. But, if I learned more about a different system, I might be like, oh, that's really interesting. There's always, I think even, small things sometimes improve governmental systems. The Robson rotation that Tasmania specifically has. Tasmania... and the ACT, I believe, the thing called a Robson rotation, right, is on a ballot, right, you have a list of people that is randomly assigned. Difference between a normal ballot and a Robson rotation ballot is for upper house elections, where you've got multiple members to elect per party. So you go to the Senate, you're like, oh, we've got 4 candidates for Labour, 4 candidates for Greens, 4 candidates for Liberals, right? Where they are along the ballot, that's randomized every election. In a Robson rotation, the order of those candidates is then also randomized as well. So outside Tasmania, elections for state, you and your friend have the same ballot. In Tasmania, for a state election, the Robson rotation means that you and your friend, even if you live in the same electorate, can be different. The names are all there. All the names are still the same. They're just in different orders, which means if a 5% of people donkey vote, you don't then have a 5% swing towards whoever gets to be first on the ballot, because that has been evenly randomly distributed amongst all the ballots. And then also makes you think a little bit harder about who you are actually voting for, because if you care about a candidate, you have to actually find their name on the ballot versus just rocking up and being like, oh, I'm a party voter for this, blah, 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 blah. That is not necessarily the best strategy to elect someone. So that sort of randomization just sort of evens out any slight anomalies that you would get from apathy. So I like the Robson rotation. Western Australia just had electoral reform. They're probably not going to introduce that. Oh well. So yeah. Will Prince Charles Hospital be changed to King Charles Hospital? I mean, we haven't gotten rid of King Edward Memorial Hospital. There's going to be Queen Elizabeth Memorial Hospitals. There's going to be Queen Elizabeth Memorial things. Oh, there's going to be it's going to have memorial in the word. In the actual name. Oh, we're going to have a slew of things named after her now. Just realised that. Never thought about that until now. All the laws that say verbatim Her Majesty the Queen, that just that's okay. They won't need to be rewritten or redrafted. Just automatically, we understand. The judges and High Court and whatnot will be able to look at that and be like, we understand the intention of this element of this phrase. Like the Constitution, for example, of Australia, is like it says that like at the start, like this applies to Queen Victoria, and does it say the words Queen Victoria? It talks about the Queen. It says Queen all the way through it, and this is because Queen Victoria was alive until 1901 when the Constitution came into effect. It also then has like a fine print about saying that like it applies to the inheritors of like the monarchy of the UK, basically. So it's basically just like, sure, if we reference the Queen specifically, like the Constitution for 51 years in Australia said Queen, 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 and you can't change the wording of it without a referendum, even though we had a king. But it's like, this is clearly talking about the monarch. So if there is a statute out there that specifically says Queen, it's fine. The courts will be like, oh yeah, we know what that means. It's referring to the monarch. If we become a republic, if there are such things like that, they might need to be redrafted, or just because it is the duty of the courts to interpret the statutes, they would just use their best judgment to look at it and be like, okay, well, how do we apply that now to the president, I suppose. Yeah. Can't wait to see our new coins and $5 notes. Yeah, that should be coming in about a year-ish. Don't know when. I did read the RBA's statement. So they're not withdrawing the money. I was like, there's millions of dollars out there, like millions of notes. What are we going to do with them? You can't just like take them back. Yeah, basically it's just going to be like, cool, we're going to start printing Charles money, and gradually that is going to replace Elizabeth money. I have a coin collection and like note collection. My wife and I, my beautiful wife, who is, I believe, watching this live stream in the other room. Thanks, honey. Thank you for supporting me. I love you. We have some coins, naturally, that are very old, that have King George, who is referred to as Emperor. We don't say that anymore. Charles's coronation is a public holiday. I don't want to go to work. Oh, when would it be? I suppose it'd be during the day, right? I don't know. I haven't had a coronation in 69 years. Yeah. There's no need to stockpile coins. There's a dime a dozen. There's millions of them. We're going to see Elizabeth's face for years to come. You're not going to... hey, Pilby. I know your name. Old coins, put them on eBay. That's how I got half of mine. I went through a phase of buying foreign currency on eBay, and then realized that I was spending money on... more money on than what the money I was buying was worth for money that I could not use. So, like, buying a $5 note from some other country for like $8.70, with shipping included, and then being like, wow, I can't use this. And I'm like, hang on a second, this is a stupid hobby. What am I doing? There. Though, some friends got married a couple of years ago, and they as like a wedding favor had like different coins, and I got a 5-cent New Zealand coin which has that reptile that starts with T. The name escapes me, and I'm like, these are out of they don't mint these anymore. I'm so happy. And the groom was like, oh, I'm so glad you are. I just thought it was a nice coin. I'm like, no, this is a really good coin. Thank you. I was really considering buying this off eBay. You've saved me having to spend whatever amount of money it is to buy a 5-cent coin that I can't use. But yeah, I have like Australian like half pennies. We actually switched to dollars from pounds and pennies on Valentine's Day, 1966, I believe it was. Yes, but if anyone actually does want to get me some foreign currency, is the Cook Islands or the Solomon Islands? That the $3 note involves sharks and a topless woman surfing. It's fantastic. I really want to double check that now. Uh, the joy of watching a live stream where someone is on their phone double checking something. Come on. Yes. The Cook Islands $3 note involves a topless woman riding a shark. You should all go Google that. Fantastic imagery. Perfect design. Absolutely amazing. Perfect design. I love it. Why can't we have sharks in our $3 note? Someone says, please can we take a moment to remember the Queen? We're all doing that right now. We're constantly remembering her right now. She is in the forefront of my mind. I had a lot of energy last night. Being like, my friend in Wales messaged me being like, I'm pretty sure the Queen is dying. And I'm like, being like, this is historic. I wasn't expecting this. And I had to go for a walk because I'm like, is she going to live? Is she not going to? And like refreshing the Guardian's live feed to be like, what's going to happen? Until I was like, okay, the BBC won't resume like broadcasting until like 6 p.m. I've been told that they've changed into black suits, so I'm pretty sure she's going to die. But that would be 1 a.m. local time for me, so I'm going to go to bed. So my wife woke me up like just after 1 a.m. to be like, the Queen has died 5 minutes ago. And I'm like, oh, I'm going back to sleep now. And then I've been thinking about the Queen all of today because at work we have 2 very large old portraits of her now that we frantically put up on display for the public. Yeah. So my condolences if you are feeling sad about the death of the Queen. And of course, I have said in the description of this live stream to please be civil. Let's be mindful that some people are actually very sad about the passing of the Queen. She is an icon of a lot of people. A lot of people have been posting some very dark memes and really do not care. I am not going to judge either of these people. Nationalize what? Yes. Yeah. Someone brings up the point that Queen Elizabeth II was coronated. I think it was 16 months after her father's death, King George VI. So a coronation ceremony is going to happen. We don't know when. It could be months, could be a year. There is like a mourning period, and then the coronation is a large, pompous sort of ceremony. I say pompous, like pomp, you know. There will be a lot to it. Whereas there's this thing called an interregnum, which is a fun and difficult word to say. There is none of that. That would be a gap between the position. Sometimes we refer to the period between King Charles I being executed and King Charles II becoming king as the interregnum. But King Charles III is automatically, the moment the Queen dies, the king of 15 different countries. So the coronation, that's just a ceremony that could happen at some point. King Edward VIII didn't have one. He didn't stick around long enough to actually have that ceremony with the crown placed on him and the swearing in and whatnot. But he was king with all the authority and power that comes with it for a few months before he could not resolve the conflict with the church regarding his love for Wallis Simpson. Yes. Yeah. When I heard that she was under medical supervision, there was very much like, oh no, she's gonna die. And then also like thinking about like my grandfather, who had a stroke followed by another stroke and then another stroke. And at one point, like I left a wedding because my mum's like, he's in the hospital. You should come quick just to make sure, you know. And like, I do remember like that like deep concern of like being like, this could be the last time, like much like, you know, the her children and grandchildren were flying to see her in Balmoral, and I was genuinely like going back and forth between like, you know, if we know about this, that means it's so serious, she really could die any moment because they have a tight lip on it. But then also like the counterbalance of like seeing grandpa in hospital, and the doctor being like, he's not going to last much longer, and me thinking, like once I'd calmed down, be like, you've never met my grandfather, buddy. That's what they said and have continued to said for the past 5 years. He lived. He died several months later, but you know, he didn't die like days later like the doctor was expecting, or less. So like I really was like back and forth between like the queen's gonna die any moment, and being like, nah, she'll pull through, she'll be like my grandmother, like I mean my grandfather, like, you know, we're all just like, but because she's old. But then I'm like, nah, she's real solid. No, she unfortunately died, but thankfully family did get to visit her. That is a special thing, and I'm glad that that happened, whether you are with family in her last moments. So that is at least a positive thing, even though the fact that her family just flew to Scotland to visit her caused like a worldwide panic of people thinking, oh, but that did actually prepare us emotionally for what actually did happen. So I've talked a lot, and now the chat has really gone away from me. So now I'm doing the good old classic. Yeah, I'd like to see. Yeah, Tyrone, I would like to see Australian nature on our money. I don't. I think. Oh, do you have to? You don't have to have the Queen or Monarch on every single thing. That's just a tradition. That's just what we have on coins. We could potentially not have King Charles III on our money. I don't think there's a law against it, but it is tradition, so that is what we will have. What do I think the Queen's favourite sub was? Prince Philip, obviously. What do you mean at least do 2 minutes of silence, Tony? That would be a very boring live stream. I've done 2 minutes of silence at work already. Yeah. Sorry. It feels like that was a snide remark. I don't want to be insensitive, but I'm not going to do minutes of silence on a live stream. I do send my condolences to people who are affected by the death of Queen Elizabeth II. This is a chat. We've sat down to do a chat, so that's what we're doing. I think the last referendum to become a republic failed mostly because what was presented was a little on the nose. Could you elaborate on that? I'm curious as to what your perspective is. NCR Ranger mentions the flag. I know this isn't the point that you brought up, but I just want to point out the flag doesn't need to change if we become a republic. That is a big misconception that I see in republic discussions, being like, I don't want to change the flag. It's like, you don't need to change the flag. Fiji became a republic in, I think, the 80s or something, like at least 30 years ago, and they still have the Union Jack on their flag. We could vote to change the flag, you know, in a few weeks if we wanted to, and get rid of the Union Jack, or we could become a republic and keep it as part of our historic links. Quite likely, it will bring up a discussion about changing the flag. That is a separate issue, though. So we can become a republic, get rid of King Charles III, but keep the Union Jack, or, vice versa. I feel like lots of people have opinions on the flag, whether it's, about familiarity or just because it is a symbol. Plenty of people have discussions about, does the Union Jack represent us? Do we still need it? Why should we have it? And also, if we get rid of it, it'll be less confusing watching the Olympics, because I'm like, yeah, we're doing well. Oh no, that's New Zealand. Our flags look so similar. New Zealand should change their flag. Let us keep our one. They should have, though. They did have a vote several years back and didn't work. The public didn't agree to change their flag. Yeah. What would be on our money if the Australian dollar... What would be on the back of our money if we became a republic? It's a good question. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like to be honest, I do say it's okay. Changing to a republic won't necessarily require a change of flag, but I really do think that probably will coincide. I recently read Fighting for the Republic by Malcolm Turnbull, and he complains that he's like, people keep talking about the flag. That's not going to happen. Stop. No one's actually talking about that. People, he got annoyed that people were being like, I don't want to become a republic. I don't want to change the flag. And it's like, hey, buddy, I also agree with you that this is like a separate issue. You are correct. Absolutely. We probably almost certainly will, though. That is definitely a discussion that'll go joint with the Republic movement. Probably just cause. Oh man, that sucks, Penciled Ink, that you can't go to Parliament because it is postponed. Parliament is postponing a week as part of their sort of commemoration of the Queen's death. I believe the Governor-General and the Prime Minister are going to visit the UK to be part of some ceremony, or at least give their condolences. There's a lot of ceremonial and like foreign affairs things that come along with this, even though she is like the Australian monarch, it is still foreign affairs, really, that we have to engage with. Again, she was the head of state of 15 countries, so it's unfortunate that you can't visit Parliament House. I wish I could visit Parliament House, but yeah. Go and have a good time and meet with a member of Parliament. Yeah. Laser kangaroo on the flag. I love it. Let's do it. What if we get rid of the Australian flag and we just have the Aboriginal flag? We already have that on like lots of emblems. We literally already have it on flagpoles all around the country. We wouldn't have to make more. We wouldn't have to do a redesign. We could just have it. Why not? Why should we fly three flags? The federal, state, and Aboriginal, or four flags, federal, state, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander. Just have the Aboriginal flag and Torres Strait Islander flag, and then your individual state ones. You've saved a whole flagpole and redesign thing. Yeah. Yeah. US. Yeah. Okay. I forgot what we were talking about. I was like, what? Steve Irwin? Yes, Steve Irwin on the back of our money would be good. I mean, look, we put plenty of people on coins. Like at some point, we had a commemorative Don Bradman 20-cent coin. I mean, it had the Queen on the back, but like, we could have a 20-cent coin where Don Bradman replaces King Charles III. I mean, the last time Parliament of Western Australia flew their flags at half-mast was because Shane Warne died, the cricketer. So, I mean, cricket is a very common part of our culture, so we don't need former prime ministers to be on the back of coins. We could just have Don Bradman. No more King Charles III, Don Bradman. That's not a serious suggestion. Yeah. Ooh, dark suggestion from Tyrone that having such is life written on the back of every coin. It's a reminder of wealth inequality. Dark, sad. Isn't that the last words of Ned Kelly? We could have Don Bradman and Ned Kelly and Steve Irwin and Edith Cowan. We've got to have some women in there. Edith Cowan, first woman ever elected to any Australian Parliament. Would it be disrespectful to have Neville Bonner? Neville Bonner isn't on our money, but he's the first Indigenous person to be elected to a parliament in Australia. He's the first Indigenous senator. Was he Queensland? We would have to consult, I suppose, with his family whether or not to put his visage as a deceased Indigenous person all over the place. But, I mean, we have an Indigenous person on the back of the $50 note. On the other side, there isn't Edith Cowan. So it's a thing that could happen. We could have a diverse amount of people on the back of our money. I haven't actually considered redesign of money until now. Like, I think this morning I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have Charles's face. We are seeing me improvise live ideas about what money would be like. Yes. Is the Queen's death ceremony an Australian government plan or a Commonwealth plan? I mean, it will. Her body goes to a church, I believe, where it stays for a while before then being buried in like a crypt or mausoleum or something. Like, I believe it is like she's not buried in the same place as the other royals immediately from memory. And again, like, it's kind of that vague thing where, like, I've kind of heard about the traditions of the UK that we haven't done in 70 years. So don't quote me on that one. There will be some kind of ceremony in Australia, but like a small one. The big thing will be in the UK. Yeah, I don't know what ceremonies we'll have. I'm interested. Again, this is the kind of thing that hasn't happened in 70 years. So, I wasn't alive 70 years ago. I have a remarkable... I do like Australian history. I do have a gap. Every now and again, I'm like, what happened in the 50s? What's going on? Yeah. Well, Tilby, yes. I mean, we don't have to redesign the state flags if we got rid of the Union Jack, because they're, the state flags. It could be an individual state decision to keep the Union Jack, or they might not. Yeah. The trees have spoken, saying that they'd rather have Don Bradman than Charles, despite not knowing anything about cricket. I also don't know much about cricket, much to my wife's disappointment and her family's disappointment. No, they're not disappointed in me. They love me. They are big fans of cricket, though. And yes, to this day, I still have barely learned anything other than you can hit something for 4 points or 6 points. There are also runs. There's other things for points. I have a book that explains this all. They did for Christmas once. Actually, they bought me a book. I swear it is somewhere. I do have it. I didn't get rid of it. Called "What is a Googly?" That is to explain cricket to me. I would be completely fine with Don Bradman being on our coins, despite the fact that I don't know anything about cricket. Yes, love you, honey. In the other room, even though I don't know cricket. Tobruk rat what? Blip. I also have a book about that. Where did I put it? I have so many books that reference the things that I say, and I don't know where they are. I swear I do. Did I get rid of it? Surely not. Are these all my books? Oh, yes. Aha. Whoa. Rats of Tobruk. This is a book that I've had. I won it in a quiz night 12 years ago. Never read it. Oh no, I've broken a frame that I stepped on. Oh well. I don't know where the googly book is. Anyway, let's not talk about my bookshelf. Let's catch up with questions. I've been going for about an hour and a half. I did want to start this earlier, but I was organising the house, and the house looks a lot better. I'm very happy for that. So I will wrap up soon. Let's go. Let's look at more questions. Lawrence says, I know it's not feasible, but if we did become a republic using First Nations borders instead of state ones would be fierce. I mean, we don't need to redefine state borders. That would require a triple majority referendum, I think. It's, well, I mean, if you redefine state borders, states can give up their part of their territory to the Commonwealth to become a territory. My point is, yes, it would be difficult to redraw state borders, but local government areas can be redefined. Local government areas are managed by states. States have the authority over local governments because they created them before they created the federal government. We could have local government areas that are just broader and larger, based off like the areas that different Indigenous peoples used to like manage before colonial settlement. I don't know how that would work, but that's just an idea to bounce off what you said. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Points, he says in cricket. Do they not have points? Okay. What? A question. What is the favorite coin I have? Oh, I don't know. I don't really do favorites. I have some old coins. I have some funky coins. I don't know. I do have some notes, though, that I think are very novel and I enjoy. This is another relatively recently deceased monarch, Prince Leonard of the Hutt River Province, or Hutt River Principality, a micronation in Western Australia up near Geraldton that was around for about 50 years. Basically, Prince Leonard, self-styled, not recognised by anyone, he didn't like the wheat quotas regulation that the state government put on in, I think, the 60s, I think, and decided to declare his farm a micronation, and he was really committed to that, and so created notes and stamps, and you could buy a passport to the Hutt River Province, and so I have Hutt River Province money. Prince Leonard died, and his son Graham. Leonard died. Leonard was born about the same time as Queen Elizabeth. He also died in his 90s a few years back. His son Prince Graham just couldn't afford to carry on the legacy, and so unfortunately had to sell the farm. So Prince the Hutt River Principality or province of Hutt River, whatever, a little bit there. I've forgotten which. It's known by two names. It has dissolved. It is no more, and the family no longer is persisting with this sort of protest over legislation that doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. And they are no longer fighting with the ATO because Prince Leonard would say that because he is not in Australia, he is in the Hutt River province, he does not need to pay Australian taxes because, yeah. So he did have a lot of troubles with the ATO. He was at one point actually jailed briefly over this disagreement. He was really committed to it. Could I explain the 1999 preamble question? With hope in God, the Commonwealth of Australia is constituted as a democracy with a federal system of government to serve the common good. I don't actually understand the preamble that was proposed. It wasn't like a legislative change. Like, it doesn't change the legislative framework of the Constitution, really. It was like a vibe, I guess, because it's not about any of the articles of it. It's sort of more of an establishing statement about the country. So I've never actually read why John Howard argued for it. So I can't really explain it very well. I do remember that he did want to include the word mateship in it, but people mocked that. And so the final wording that he proposed was not including the word mateship. And then people voted down it anyway. So I don't know. There was also like discussion in the 90s about like recognition of Indigenous Australians, like either like generally or in the preamble. And John Howard, I think, also proposed, it might actually have been in the version that he put forward, I can't remember, where he did not use the word Aboriginal. No, I'm pretty sure he didn't use it in the... I don't know. Oh, never mind. At one point, one of the... either during the draft wording or the final wording, there was a outdated term for Indigenous people that we don't use anymore. It's, the one that's similar to Aboriginal, but isn't. And it's like, no, don't put that in the Constitution, sir. Yeah. Is there a good reason why the nexus thing between the number of people in the House of Representatives and Senate exists? Getting into different referendums. So the House of Representatives is a size based off like relative population. So if like the state of New South Wales, like if a ton of people move from there to other states, then like it will like lose a seat in the House of Representatives as they redraw boundaries every few years to like have a comparable amount of people. Pardon me. So like it can grow over time, but the Senate is based off this idea of like balancing out that population element of the House of Representatives. So, each state gets equal representation. Territories don't need to have that because they don't have the same constitutional protection as that. They are given representation by the Commonwealth as per the Commonwealth's discretion. But basically, right, constitutionally, the Senate has to be as close as practically possible half the size of the House of Representatives, right? If you were to remove an element of that, which I think is what the Nexus referendum was in 67, was about. I think that's what it was. I can't remember for sure. It definitely was defeated. Please correct me if I'm wrong, right? But if you remove that, right, then the balancing element of the Senate gets removed. So if the House of Representatives can be 2.5 or 3 times the size of the Senate, basically then New South Wales, for example, being the largest state in terms of population, would then effectively get more power and influence as a sort of statistical ratio. Naturally cannot, as an individual state, override the decisions of others because it won't have more than half the seats in the House of Representatives. But like that is the system that Australia has to sort of balance out. Okay, we don't want the populous states to make all the rules. All the prime ministers will statistically come from, like, you know, New South Wales and Queensland, but they don't make all the rules thanks to the Senate. So Tasmania gets to stand up and be like, we're part of this too. So altering that would alter basically the powers of the states, and the Senate is the states chamber. So it's you know, smaller states would not like it. Yeah. Have I got any ideas on how our government can be less corrupt? Well, vote in different people, different kind of oversight. Labor plans on introducing a federal ICAC bill before the end of the year, so that as a form of oversight. Yeah, it's a combination of democratic decision making and transparency and oversight. It's really just about, you know, what legislation there is to regulate what governments do. For some reason, when we talk about republics online, every now and again people were like, I don't trust the idea of becoming a republic because I think the government is corrupt. Two separate things. Government can be super corrupt in a republic or not corrupt at all in a republic. It's not about that. It's just about the head of state. And yeah, it's very much like, how do we, you know, what do we have in place for corruption, really? Which, you know, like I said, the legislation is changing on that, or, well, is proposed to be changing in the upcoming months. Yeah. Okay. No, I really will leave soon. So I'm going to wrap up this because I do want to have dinner with my beautiful, wonderful wife. I don't think a federal ICAC could replace the Governor General because it does not serve the same purpose at all. The Governor General is an integral part of the governmental system because that is the de facto head of state acting on behalf of the monarch currently, right? And the Governor General has many roles, including appointing who gets to be Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is a person who gets elected in their electorate and is one of the many members of the House of Representatives. And if a party or coalition forms a majority, it's pretty clear who the leader of that party will then become the Prime Minister. The actual role of Prime Minister is an appointed role, not an elected role. They're an elected official who gets appointed to be Prime Minister. The Governor General chooses who gets to be Prime Minister. This is normally a pretty obvious choice. Until 1910, so from 1901 to 1910 election, this was not an obvious choice. We had a three-way split. No party had a majority. So the Governor General had to choose a rotating cast of people to be Prime Minister. Sometimes like changing it partway through a term. The Governor General also appoints, on the recommendations of the government and Attorney General, who will be a High Court Justice, who then interprets and enforces the federal laws, and interprets the last Court of Appeal and interprets the Constitution. So the federal ICAC is just, you know, to produce a watchdog body that examines the decisions and actions of members of Parliament to see if they have engaged in corruption. It's in no way to do with the powers of, you know, the executive branch of government. Yeah. Someone asked, why do we even need a head of state? Because that is just the function. Someone is a head of state. Effectively, someone is, whether that is like an active role or a ceremonial role, it's just really just someone above to create, to give sort of executive approval of bills of Parliament, because, you know, there's the legislature, the Parliament, they come up with laws, right? But the Prime Minister can't just like snap his fingers and be like, aha, it's a law now. the Governor General acts as an external element to that to approve those bills or deny them if they are unconstitutional. It's really just an element of how governments work, right? In like the US system, for example, the president is both head of state and head of government. It's really just someone with executive power. And it's just there are many different ways in which we can create this person and like either like limit their power or just make it very ceremonial. So it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just someone is part of that. And currently that's King Charles III. Yeah. Someone has come to visit me. I hear people in my house. Someone has come to visit me. So I'm going to wrap this up. What's my opinion on the double dissolution? I've forgotten what I was going to say. Like, if we had the Prime Minister and not the Governor General, like the Prime Minister would, as the head of state, the traditional title would be President. So the Prime Minister would be the President and we could keep that person. We would just be giving them more power effectively, because again, that would give them the powers of the executive, which in practice they do exercise now, but there is still like this external umpire to be able to dismiss the Prime Minister if they abuse their power in a sense. Yeah, again, it's just about model, really. Someone is head of state. We could combine that with the Prime Minister. Yes, and also, again, if there is no clear majority winner in an election, who gets to be Prime Minister? So yeah, that's part of what the Governor General does, is decide ultimately to resolve if there is a constitutional conflict or an issue in the Parliament itself, like that. Yes. Anyway, I do hear that someone has visited. I did say that I was going to wrap this up. So that is it. I think I've pretty much answered a lot of questions. Hobbies outside of politics? None. No, I play Pokemon a lot. That's it. I love Pokemon Go. But yes, I think we've pretty much covered a lot of things. My condolences to those who are sad about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, and congratulations to those who are very enthusiastic for now a new opportunity to start a republic. Either one. Again, lots of people have different opinions about this. So yes, thank you so much for your questions and keeping me company. I am going to go have dinner now and say hello to whoever has come to visit me. So have a nice day, everyone. Well, evening. And remember, we have a king now. King Charles III. I have to get used to saying His Majesty's pleasure, and, appointed on his behalf. That sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, have fun. Goodbye. Au revoir, as the King of England would say, because the Monarchy of England has traditionally spoken French for a long time. Actually, the Order of the Garter, the highest order, their crest has a slogan in French, a motto in French, because for hundreds of years that was actually the language that monarchs of England spoke. So yes, au revoir. Anyway, goodbye.